Friday, June 30th, 2017. You are listening to Inception Radio Network, voice of the fringe majority. This is Carol Carl with UFO Headline News. We'll jump into the night sky in just a sec, but first it seems appropriate to send our heartfelt thanks and supports and prayers to everybody temporarily, we hope, tossed out of their homes, all the people connected with storm damage, with the wildfires raging throughout this country, and also kudos to all the firefighters and the extensive support staff that we must imagine goes along with such. Let's just hope the weather turns and everybody has a safe and sane 4th of July, which is coming up. Coming up tonight in the sky, we can look forward to the first quarter moon with planet Jupiter. Be sure and watch that magnificent pairing. It's the moon and Jupiter, and you can see them as soon as darkness falls. The moon and Jupiter rank as the brightest and third brightest heavenly bodies of nighttime. What's the second brightest? Well, that would be the planet Venus, that blazing glory which resides exclusively in the morning sky for the rest of 2017. Also, look for the bright star near Jupiter and the moon. That's Spica, and it's going to be near Jupiter throughout 2017. The brightest light in the constellation Virgo, the maiden. The moon reaches its first quarter phase July 1st, 2017 at 0:51 UTC. Converting universal time to clock time in North American time zones, well, that's extensive, and you can find a link later at ufoheadlinenews.com. There will be charts. And here's a fun thing to ponder. The Earth and Moon are like mirrors to each other. If you were on the moon tonight, you'd see a last quarter Earth. The folks at Earth Sky provide a cool graphic simulation of such, and you can find that later by those usual links. At quarter moon, the moon's disk is half illuminated by sunlight and half immersed in the moon's own shadow. Enter the lunar terminator, that shadow line crossing between moon's day and night sides. It shows you where it's sunrise on the waxing first quarter moon. The moon is said to be at first quarter because in its cycle of phases, the moon is 1/4 the way from one new moon to the next. As it does always, the moon moves eastward in front of the constellations of the zodiac. Watch for the moon over the next several nights as its distance from Jupiter on our sky's dome increases. What you're really watching? The moon's own motion in orbit around Earth. And where king planet Jupiter is concerned, it ended its retrograde motion earlier this month, June 10th to be exact, which means the best time of 2017 for viewing this dazzling planet has ended, but it dazzles nonetheless. We can speak to that personally. Thus, Jupiter is now moving eastward along its elliptic path. Again, it's heading toward the star Spica, Virgo's brightest star. Keep watching as Jupiter moves toward Spica. It's going to pass 3 degrees north of this star on September 5th, 2017. Mark your calendars. Because Jupiter is roughly in the same area of sky as the moon tonight, you might expect this world to exhibit a similar phase to tonight's moon. Not so, says Bruce McClure, who writes this. Jupiter, in fact, is so far distant from Earth that it always appears nearly 100% illuminated from our earthly perspective. So here's the bottom line. The dazzling planet Jupiter is near the first quarter moon on June 30th, tonight. Enjoy the waxing moon and Jupiter on July 1st as well. On behalf of everybody at Inception Radio Network and the UFO Headline News, here's what we say today. Happy Asteroid Day. Yep, that's today, June 30th, 2017. Here's a cool story we found at earthsky.org in their Human World section. Eleanor Imster writes this. Hundreds of events, films, concerts, panels with engineers, scientists, and astronauts about asteroids and how to protect our planet from asteroid impacts are featured at the 3rd Annual International Asteroid Day. It's happening today. Asteroid Day is a global awareness campaign to help people learn about asteroids and what we can do to ultimately protect our planet from their impacts. Asteroid Day is held on the anniversary of the largest asteroid impact in Earth's recent history. an event that took place in Siberia on this date, June 30th, in 1908, known as the Tunguska explosion. A small asteroid apparently exploded over Tunguska, although, as one can imagine, there is controversy over the nature of this explosion. It released the equivalent, whatever it was, of 100 tons of TNT, devastating an area of about 800 square miles. That's the size of a major metropolitan city. There's a link to a chart that will show you where you can celebrate Asteroid Day today in an event near you. It's not too late. NASA will mark Asteroid Day 2017 at noon today with a program airing on NASA TV. We're pretty sure that will be also preserved in archives. It's something about how researchers find, track, and characterize NEOs, near-Earth objects, asteroids, and comets that come within the vicinity of Earth's orbit and could theoretically pose an impact hazard to Earth, and how NASA is working to get our nation prepared to respond to any potential impact threat. NASA Planetary Defense Officer Lindley Johnson made a statement about this. Here we go. At NASA, every day is an asteroid day, but we value the international collaboration for a designated day to call attention to the importance of detecting and tracking hazardous asteroids. The NASA broadcasts will be part of a 24-hour Asteroid Day program from Broadcasting Center Europe, beginning on June 29th, actually, at 1 a.m. June 30th UTC. There are charts that translate it to your individual time zones, and there's a link for streaming online. Have fun! Here's some fun sleuthing, perhaps, on the internet for your weekend. We picked this story up from the dailymercury.com. That's a publication out of Australia, but it is making the rounds online, and we just couldn't ignore it any longer. The Mackay Daily Mercury is the subset publication here, and here's the headline. Mars photo of metallic object has internet in a UFO frenzy. It's shiny, it's sharp, it's on Mars. It must be aliens. What appears to be a chunk of metal photographed by the Opportunity rover has UFO buffs in a spin. It shows an unusually shiny and jagged object sitting neatly on top of the grainy surface of Mars Meridiani Planum. As example, it has the internet chat forum Reddit in rapture, says this uncredited writer. Here's a quote. NASA, UFO caught on Mars rover mission? Is this real? That's posted by someone calling themselves Prosaic Origin. If it looks odd, of course, it must be aliens. But in this case, the resolution is reasonably crisp, not a blurry morass like most UFO evidence. Said one commentator, quote, looks like light glimmering off of a genuine spaceship on an alien planet in outer space, end quotes. But for that to be true, there's that small matter of scale. At that distance from the Opportunity rover, any inhabitants would probably have to be no larger than ants. A more down-to-earth, although admittedly this is Mars we're talking about here, suggestion was that it could be a piece of debris from the rover itself, or a heat shield from the craft that delivered it. Satellites have gone awry, landers have crashed. Even successful projects litter the landscape with debris as they plow through the thin atmosphere. And Opportunity has been traveling back along the line of its lander's approach. It's photographed discarded bits and pieces before. And that's how this article ends. There is no punchline here. It's a curious shot. If you haven't seen it, head on over to UFOheadlinenews.com later. Take a look. It's bright and shiny. It looks very much NASA-like to these eyes. But speaking of aliens, here is a headline. Roswell invaded as UFO festival begins. We grabbed this from KOB.com, Channel 4, out of Roswell, New Mexico. It gets a byline for Leonard Tapia. People around the world are making their way to New Mexico this weekend for what organizers call the biggest UFO festival in the world. People, pets, aliens, and everyone in between invaded the streets of downtown Roswell to kick off the 22nd annual event. Some of the highlights of this year's event include 2 extreme water slides to help people stay cool in the dead of the heat during the 70th anniversary of the much-discussed 1947 Roswell event. Here's a quote from Stephen Diaz. He's visiting the event from Texas. Quote, "A lot of my family doesn't believe, and they came because we do, so maybe they will believe after today." End quotes. Others tell station KOB all the alien hype is a bit overwhelming, but at the same time, still exciting. Quote, "I've never seen a town like this before, obsessed with aliens," end quotes, said Brandon Allen, visiting from Vermont. He continues, quote, "I mean, I've always believed in aliens, but this is kind of over the top," end quotes. Even if you're not into the whole alien craze, you can enjoy some fun and games, good eats, and great shopping. And this broadcaster understands that there's music involved as well. And also Jesse Marcel III, the grandson of the original Colonel Jesse Marcel involved in the Roswell beginnings. He'll be attending the event and perhaps speaking as well. Said April Genesee, visiting from Utah, quote, "It's amazing. The smells of the food are awesome, and everybody here is so nice," end quotes. Speaking of food, the Food Network, along with Snapchat, the Travel Channel, and Comet TV, are among some of the familiar names making a crash landing at this year's fest. Said Joby Fesha, quote, "I'm having a blast. It's a lot of fun. We're, buying the t-shirts, buying hats. We're visiting places, just having a good time," end quotes, she said. The UFO Fest officially kicked off Thursday afternoon. There will be tons of events taking place in the next few days there in downtown Roswell. Laser shows, movies, and even commentary from UFO experts. Indeed. Thank you, KOB, for that story. Here comes more stuff to do with UFOs. We're going to change our trajectory and go from the great American Southwest, Roswell, New Mexico, slightly east and very much south. We won't stop till we come to Argentina, the setting for this sighting. We pick this up from Inexplicata, the Journal of Hispanic Ufology. They picked it up from a source, La Gaceta, Salta, and Planeta UFO. Thanks for translation to S. Corrales and Guillermo Jimenez. Here we go. Unknown flashing object astonishes onlookers. Something out of the ordinary startled residents of Barrio El Carmen on the 24th of June this year. Whatever it was, it sparkled and moved, but it was unknown to those looking at it. Local residents were astounded by the object that appeared in the skies of Salta at noon. In Barrio El Carmen, anyone looking up at that time would have been surprised to see an unusual shiny object. Some locals who beheld the circular shining object spoke with the publication at La Gaceta about the unanswered riddle, what could it have been? Says one local in a video, quote, "We were unable to identify this object. It was silvery and flashing, and it led us to believe it was a UFO reflecting sunlight," end quotes. Says another, quote, "It was like a spinning sphere giving off a light, an incandescence. My brother phoned me to tell me about it, but I didn't see it until he told me exactly where to look in the sky. Then I was able to locate it and see it," end quotes. Gentle listeners, if you'd like to see it, you can locate a link later at ufoheadlinenews.com. Hang on to something. We're going to take another huge geo shift for our cyberufostalker.com UFO sightings report. We're going to go back now to the state of Arizona in the great American Southwest, city of Phoenix. This is MUFON case number 84712. It took place on the 29th of June, 2017, and was reported that same day. Here's the summary. Saw a large swarm, hundreds, twinkling red lights over downtown Phoenix, over buildings, not attached to object. The viewing distance here began at 501 feet and eventually extended to 1 mile. The altitude was over 500 feet, and there was cloud cover over Phoenix that night. The sighting duration, 10 minutes. Object features, unknown. The flight path was stationary, and this object's shape is simply reported as other. There isn't any meteorology, but the sighting seemed to go something like this. The night of June 29th, 2017.
Lowe's has you covered for all those projects on your summer to-do list and will even help you save. Give your home a whole new look inside and out with $10 to $40 off paint, exterior stains, and resurfacers via rebate. And add a pop of color to your porch or patio with flowers. Get your choice 2 for $10 basic 1.5-gallon hanging baskets. All projects have a starting point. Start with Lowe's. Paint offer valid 6/21 through 7/5. Exclusions apply. Plan offer valid 6/28 through 7/5. Color and selection vary by location while supplies last. U.S. only.
At roughly around 9:30 p.m., my grandma and I were driving out of downtown Phoenix, Arizona. We were heading down Highway 202 and Rural Road. I looked out the window and saw a very large swarm of hovering, twinkling red lights. It looked like there were hundreds of these lights in a shapeless swarm. They were packed closely enough that we could tell they weren't attached on the surface of any object. This swarm was high in the air, and it could be seen for several miles away. It was not close to any tall buildings. It was larger than a blimp. We could not believe our eyes, and we couldn't find any explanation for the swarm of lights later online or on the local news. We lost sight of this swarm as we turned onto Highway 101. We're not sure if the lights on the swarm moved at all, but they seemed to twinkle slowly. This event happened over a major metropolitan area near a major highway, so there must be other witnesses out there. Oh, there must, indeed. We'll be watching UFOstalker.com and the comments section, available to any and everybody. If you've got a comment or a question, you can discuss it right below any particular sighting. Let's head to the Pacific Northwest now, the city of Tacoma in the state of Washington. That's the setting for MUFON sighting number 84710. This sighting took place on the 26th of this month, wasn't reported till the 29th of June, 2017. Here's the summary. Diamond-shaped object with lights, flying end over end. In the categories provided under sighting specifics, our witness lists a viewing distance of 101 to 500 feet, a treetop altitude. The sighting duration, 7 minutes. Object features, unknown. The object flight path is described as having been a straight-line path, and, as we heard earlier in the summary, this object was shaped like a diamond. Here's what the weather was doing right about that time over Tacoma, Washington. A maximum temperature of 71 degrees Fahrenheit, 22 degrees Celsius, down to a minimum temperature of 54 degrees Fahrenheit, 12 degrees Celsius. The maximum visibility, mean visibility, and minimum visibility all the same, 10 miles, 16 kilometers, and weather conditions were nothing abnormal. Here's what happened. I was in my backyard talking on my cell phone with a friend when I noticed a diamond-shaped object above my neighbor's house. The object was silver, shiny. It was reflecting light. This thing had sparkling, blinking white lights, and it was tumbling end over end as it flew over my backyard. Although the object was silver when it flew, it also seemed sometimes to change to a darker silver. There was no sound associated with this object. It was flying from the southwest to the northeast in a perfect straight line. I watched it fly off into the distance. I watched it for approximately 7 minutes from start to finish. I live on one of the flight paths for SeaTac, Seattle-Tacoma Airport, and there were jets flying north to south while this object was flying by. The sky was clear blue, just a few clouds off in the distance. I did take pictures, but the object only showed as a dot on my phone. Oh, at this point we say, where is the app? Something to zoom in on these, whatever they are, anomalies in our skies. Let's head for the skies over Woodbury, Minnesota, shall we? That's where MUFON case number 84671 happened. Date of the sighting, 6/27/2017. It got a next day report. The summary, fighter jets chasing something. There's a cool video, 3 minutes and 22 seconds, very well narrated by our witness, who happens to be a United States mail carrier. The video ends with him climbing back in his truck. There's interesting audio, not too much in the visual. Sighting specifics include a viewing distance of 501 feet to 1 mile. The altitude was over 500 feet, under cloud cover. The sighting duration was 58 seconds listed here, but as we said, it's the audio that's long. There isn't much to be seen. The object features, in fact, are listed as unknown. The flight path was a straight line path with directional change, but these are descriptions of the path of the planes following something, not the object itself, which is listed as shape unknown. Here's the account. I was working at the time. I'm a United States Postal Service mail carrier. What made me notice something was the sound of fighter jets in the sky, unusual for the area. There were at least 3, but perhaps up to 5 fighter jets in the sky. I only actually witnessed one, but there seemed to be something I couldn't quite see, something in front of it that it was chasing. It caused him to do a loop-the-loop in the sky, chasing this perhaps object. My feelings were of a little bit of excitement. I was amazed and concerned. They all flew off out of the sight line. Out of sight perhaps, but we think not out of mind. We're heading into the 4th of July weekend. How about Branson, Missouri for some fun? Or in this case, a fun sighting of something. It's the something given case number 84709 by MUFON. It happened on the 25th of June, 2017. It wasn't reported till June 29th. Here's the summary. Bright fireball shooting down for about a minute, then separating into 5 fireballs, hovering, continuing down. Irregular pattern. Viewing distance unknown. Altitude over 500 feet. No cloud cover. The sighting duration in this case was 2 minutes, with the object feature simply reported as unknown. Its flight path was a path, then hovering, and this object was shaped like a fireball. What say we have a look at a little bit of Missouri meteorology? Maximum temperature 82 degrees Fahrenheit, 28 degrees Celsius, down to a minimum temperature of 59 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 degrees Celsius. All the visibility factors stood the same, 10 miles, 16 kilometers. And at that time, there was nothing abnormal about the weather. Here's what happened. We were eating ice cream outside at Cold Stone Creamery when I noticed a fireball in the southeast direction. I pointed it out. This fireball was observed by 8 people for almost a minute. I thought it would go out, but it kept going. It was very bright. It looked like something was burning up in the atmosphere. It must have been far away as well, because it did not cover much space in the sky. At one point, this object split into 5 separate fireballs and continued downward. They separated a little, and then they started hovering. Then they continued down in an irregular pattern. All of them were going in different directions at the same time. We lost sight of these objects after an additional minute. We couldn't see them. They were behind the building across the street. I have never seen anything like this. I'd like to know if anyone else saw it, and if someone knows what these could have been. Whatever they were seen at least by 8 people at that one particular site. One more dizzying shift now. We'll go from the state of Missouri to the state of Maryland, city of Aberdeen. Case number 84658. Date of sighting 6/4/2017. Date submitted 6/27/2017. Summary: orange glowing object hovering above trees above bonfire. The sighting distance indicates it began relatively close, 21 to 100 feet. The altitude 500 feet or less. The duration of this sighting was 45 seconds. The object features described as unknown. The flight path was stationary, and the object shape is merely described as other. Maryland weather, maximum temperature 82 degrees Fahrenheit, 28 degrees Celsius. Minimum temperature 51 degrees Fahrenheit, 11 degrees Celsius. When this sighting took place, the maximum visibility stood at 10 miles, 16 kilometers. The minimum, a little bit less, 8 miles, 13 kilometers, because it was raining. First-person account, witness's own words. Let's read. I was driving home and saw an orange glowing light. This light was above the trees along the side of the road I was traveling on. It was drifting towards the northeast. I have seen objects like this in the past, so I pulled over to the side of the road and took pictures. It moved to the right of me, and the orange light stopped glowing. At that point, I saw the UFO very clearly. It was black. It had several small lights on it, orange and white lights. This thing sat still as my cell phone camera was tracking it. My cell phone screen locked, and I was unable to take pictures. I put the phone down and watched this object as it vanished. It didn't move out of sight. It actually disappeared. The sky was still light enough that I could see in every direction, and this thing was gone. As I started moving my car, I noticed a bonfire behind a home very near where this sighting took place. Somehow, I think the fire is significant. I think the fire was the reason the UFO was there. That's a fascinating take. If only there had been photos. We'll just have to take the witness's word for it. And we'll have to take the word of the clocks. They're set to tell me at this point it's time to go. Oh, wait, gotta tell you about this weekend's Off the Beaten Path. It's that new feature part of UFO headline news for the weekend, where we go well off the beaten path. We're going to be talking this weekend about ancient Egyptian writing, new symbols that reveal the development of hieroglyphics. We'll talk about a DNA study that's recently revealed cats traveled with humans centuries ago. And we'll switch into the future with Stephen Hawking saying humans should ride a beam of light to other planets. Oh, and things like this. A breatharian couple. They survive on the universe's energy instead of food. Something to chew on indeed. But for now, we've got to bounce because that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Inception Radio Network. Follow today's broadcast at UFOheadlinenews.com and YouTube. Take care of each other. We're all in this together. This is Carol Carl. See you tomorrow.